So today we've got a special one. We've got one of the goats, the true goats.
Nice to meet you as well.
Who am I here with today?
Reid Hoffman.
And what was your business?
I'm the co-founder of LinkedIn.
You co-founded LinkedIn?
Yes.
Pretty wild, right? He's the one, you know what I mean? I don't remember how many people are on the team at LinkedIn, you know, clearly more than one if he's co-founder, but he's driven more business than business. You know what I mean? How many businesses owe their revenue, owe their growth? How many presenters owe their appearances, you know, and all of their stage presence to LinkedIn and all they were able to do? And it all comes from this guy.
What was the most amount of money you made in a single year?
When I sold LinkedIn to Microsoft, and we sold it for $26 billion.
Not bad.
Did for $26 billion?
Yes, they think it's one of the best acquisitions they've ever done.
Was it worth it for them?
It was worth it for them, and it was worth it for me.
Now, you started LinkedIn in 2003.
Yes.
Did you have a lot of people that doubted you when you first started that business?
Oh yeah, no, more than 2/3 of my smart friends thought I was gonna be a complete failure with LinkedIn.
That's actually a really important point. Most people, even those that are your friends and like want you to succeed, will doubt you. Publicly, privately, they will. This is where, you know, a little bit of doubt and someone who's pushing you and questioning you if you're making like these big giant statements with no support and no evidence and no effort, right? But there are also people that you can literally be doing all the right things. You can be building things, you can be doing things fairly, you can be getting customers, and there's still haters. This is one of those scenarios that just because people are saying that you're doing it wrong or doubting you doesn't mean you're wrong. But it also isn't one of those, if everyone says you're wrong, oh, you just got to like champion through. You got to listen for what's valid. What's the valid criticism that I can take, or I should at least experiment because it's an opinion they have. Oh, this will never work. Well, what aspect of it? Oh, you're never going to acquire customers like that. Well, why don't we test it? Why don't we see if there's data? A lot of people want to be offended by the criticism instead of trying to learn from it. When you're a founder that even when things are going poorly and even when you're getting criticized, you can have takeaways and learn and grow, you're kind of unstoppable because that means even a bad meeting helps you. What are you supposed to do against the founder who doesn't care if you're upset at them, right? And is only trying to learn? You're kind of hard to stop.
Yes.
Why did you not listen to them?
Well, you do. You want to go to people and you want to say, what's wrong with my idea? Why will it fail? And then what do I know that they don't know? Because a VC looks at 600 to 800 deals a year and says yes to 0 to 2 of them. So why would they take a bet on you? When I met with the Airbnb co-founders, I told them in 2 minutes I was going to make them an offer to invest.
So if you had to start from 0.
Sometimes you just know, sometimes it's a gut check. A lot of founders, especially in the early stage, remember, the earlier you are in your business, the more they're investing in you, right? If you don't have a product and you don't have clients and you don't have this, you don't have that, what's left, right? A Delaware C Corp and your brand name, right? Your reputation. As you get further down the chain, now your business has revenue. Now you have customers. Maybe you have a little bit of intellectual property, a brand that's starting to be known. This is, you know, it's half you, majority you still, and also some company. And then by the time you get to Coca-Cola level, the entire executive board of Coca-Cola could disappear tomorrow. And guess what? We'd still have Coke products at the store because at a certain point, it becomes far more than the team. The systems, the processes, the infrastructure, the assets, they kind of are a moving wave that carry you forward no matter what. It doesn't mean that big companies can't fail, but it's all about where is the value in them across the spectrum, because it's not in one place always. It changes and evolves as the business evolves.
Yeah. You had 1 year to make $1 billion and your life depended on it. What would you do? Guys, this is about to be one of the craziest videos that I've ever done. I'm about to go meet up with and interview my 18th billionaire that I've ever interviewed. And it isn't just any ordinary billionaire. It's Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. And he sold his company LinkedIn to Microsoft for $26 billion.
This is a good note. Who buys you can often influence your valuation in a big way. The easy example is if a private equity firm thinks that they can double or triple your value by cutting costs and bringing you into a new market or doing this. Remember, they're not operators, they're owners. It's different. So you've got like your finance buyers, but then you have your strategic buyers. These are other tech companies, other large companies, people that when they buy you, they're getting more out of you than just the brand. complementary services, integrations, infrastructure. They can not just double your size, but by doubling your size, the same thing that the PE firm was going to do, now they get to soak up all that extra value into their main business. This is where the word synergies comes from, right? It's one of those, everybody uses it, but if a strategic buys you, very often they will pay more because they actually have more to gain from your success through owning you than just a PE firm, which of course is more looking to flip you as a business.
Billion with a B. And Reed invited us out to Los Angeles to come interview him to figure out what it takes to become a billionaire in today's world and how he became one of the most influential tech moguls of all time. So let's waste no more time. Let's go meet up with Reed and go see what he has.
Small note here that I think is important. Aiming to become a billionaire is great. Like, I love it. You know, invite me on your yacht by all means. I'll give you some advice. It'll be great. But it's important to note that becoming a billionaire isn't the likely goal, and it's your life changes quite a bit along the way. Remember, to become a billionaire, you were a 100 millionaire, a 500 millionaire, and 750 millionaire. Like, you have things and steps that you have to say no to. It's hard to say no to $500 million, right? But also the likelihood, because just do some simple rough math. So most businesses fail. Let's just say 90% of them fail. So now we've got this little 10% left. Now let's stretch this out. Now, most startups fail, especially so. Okay, that's even a fraction above that. Now, of those that don't fail, a vast majority sell early because it's hard. If someone offered you 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, $100 million when you're 2, 3, 4, 5 years in your business, pretty good. Life-changing money. This is very often the billion-dollar founders. Often, I would suspect, I actually should go look at this data, but from what I recall and all the interviews I've seen, it's not their first company because you're playing a different game when you're playing for the billion. The resources that you need, the tech team that you need, the infrastructure, the timeline, right? Most companies aren't becoming billion-dollar companies overnight, right? It's taking years to grow. So you have to take that into account, that this is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And this isn't the only metric of success, right? There are some companies that I know, and I have clients that have mentors and have different people, and the whole thing is they regret investing, or they regret getting investment, or they regret waiting so long to sell, because even though their business was worth at one point 50 million and they owned half, now it's worth 500 million, but they own next to nothing because they didn't do it right. They didn't structure right. They raised too much money at too low a valuation, or they did some nasty down round, or something happened which caused things to not go economically in their favor. This is why it's important to understand what are your goals. And if you're building a business that's super capital intensive, remember, equity isn't the only way to do it. If you're generating cash, you can get debt. You can use this to infuse your business with cash and continue to cycle that money on a regular basis. Remember, you don't need $1 million a year in the bank to spend $1 million in the year. If you spend $84,000 a month on a credit card, you got some big fancy credit card, or a revolver, some line of credit. If you spend $83K a month in debt, that's the equivalent of $1 million in the year. And one of those caused you a lot of dilution, right? Where you're actually losing part of your company in the equity. Whereas debt, you have to pay interest, but you're building a huge company and ideally you're generating a ton of cash. Interest is cheap compared to equity, no matter how expensive it is, plus or minus if you're getting taken advantage of from, some loan shark type entities.
Here's why you choose my firm if you're hurt in an accident. I used to work defending insurance companies, and so did many of the...
All right, you guys, we just got to our destination where we're going to be linking up with Reid Hoffman and getting $1 billion worth of game for you guys. Come on, let's go. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
Thank you for having us out to do the interview,
My
man.
pleasure.
I really appreciate
Awesome.
that. Who am I here with today?
Reid Hoffman.
And what was your business?
I'm the co-founder of LinkedIn.
You co-founded LinkedIn?
Yes.
In what year?
2003, but AI startups now.
So you're getting into AI right now.
Yeah, well, I've been in AI since I led the first round in OpenAI. So I've been in AI a bit.
So let's go back to those
man knows
early
what's
days
up.
when you're building LinkedIn. What was that initial moment that you knew that this was the thing that you were going to go all in on? What was that first moment building LinkedIn when you knew that, okay, I'm burning the boats, we're going all in on this thing right here? here?
Well, actually, because I'd learned from Socialnet, PayPal, etc., you burn the boats early. You don't like get confidence and then burn the boat. You go.
Why do you say that?
The kind of key element of risk is take a risk that other people won't take that might fail, but if you win huge.
You weren't afraid of it.
I think that's a big part of it. You have to accept that failure is a reality. Not that it has to happen, but that it very much could. A lot of founders go in with like this false sense of bravado, like, oh, I'm definitely going to. You are definitely not going to, right? You may, if you're lucky and timing, fortune, and Jesus is on your side, it'll work out, right? The rest of us, we got to fight.
Failure, though.
No, but everyone's a little afraid of failure, but I knew that I could survive failure, that I could play again. That's the key thing, is make sure that you can play again.
So how did you find yourself believing to go?
If you're playing the startup game with your life savings, it's hard because you genuinely might lose it. Like that's a real reality. If your startup fails and it's just, a punch to the groin, yeah, it hurts like hell, but it's not going to kill you, right? These are the ways to take risks, right? Because you can risk a punch to the groin, as it were. And yeah, it's terrifying if it happens, but it's not going to end your life. But if you lose your life savings, right, it's not that you can't build it back and you can't be the hero and do all this stuff, but is that the fight you want to fight? You want to put everything on the line for something that, again, you can't control the X factor, right, of what happens in the world. How many live events companies went all in right before the vid happened? And guess what happened? Most of them probably didn't do too hot.
Make billions of dollars?
I think it was that I had a good sense of I knew what strategic game I was playing, and I knew I could play multiple times, and I knew that doing software things within Silicon Valley was a very good place to be doing it. If I was in New York, I might have been doing something else, finance, etc. If I was in LA, I might have been doing media, but no, this is the place where you can do software.
Now, you started LinkedIn in 2003.
Yes.
Was that during a time where a lot of people were doubting the fact that those social networks would actually be prevalent years from then?
Well, everybody in Silicon Valley thought the consumer internet was done. It was only like Amazon and Google and PayPal and so forth. And then
don't believe someone if they say your market is done or cooked or whatever. It just means they don't know what they're talking about more often than not. Like one of my favorite sayings is, or it's one of those, if we left it to the consumer, right, they would have never believed that something could go faster than a horse. And now cars exist that, have 1,000+ horsepower. It's one of those, if you're just listening to people that obviously say no, like one of my favorites is when people be like, well, AI is not going to be, it's like, will you shut the hell up? Like you would have been the guy that said, oh, fire's never going to catch on. And Facebook, whoever heard of that, doubting technology. It's not that this is the company, but core technological infrastructure, to those that build, you sound dumb, right? It's not that you might be right. And maybe it does fail. But history has shown 1,000 times over and over and over that technology progresses. And even if something fails now, there's a real demand, it could be that there's just not technical infrastructure for it yet, right? There was that company, I forget what it was, that came out before YouTube that did YouTube things. Guaranteed they had tons of haters that are like, oh, look, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it's like, you know what? You might be right now, but a couple years later, they ate those words, I'm sure.
Actually, in fact, they thought it was enterprise software and clean tech. So it's like, oh no, the internet's over. And by the way, what do you do in this business thing? Is that like Friendster, but for business? What is that?
So you had a lot of people that were telling you no, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no, more than 2/3 of my smart friends thought I was going to be a complete failure with LinkedIn.
Actually?
Yes.
Why did you not listen to them?
Well, you do. You want to go to people and you want to say, what's wrong with my idea? Why will it fail? So they give you permission to do that. And then what do I know that they don't know? Because if you have a good theory of that, that's the chance that you might have something that's really amazing.
So what was it that you knew that they didn't know?
The most common feedback was a network property. First person in, no value. We know each other now, no value. We already know each other. So no value, no value, no value. How does the thing ever grow? And I knew I could get it to grow even when people didn't actually, in fact, have any value in the system at the beginning.
Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
No, actually, I came from a family of civil servants. So my grandfather was like, wait, why has he become an industrialist? This is
That's actually just on the growth part. I really like that because if you had to be really confident in something, I break a business into 3 parts whenever I'm analyzing it. There's go to market, which is getting customers. There's R&D, which is all things product. And then I call it required support operations. It's, legal, compliance, finance, HR, whatever. If I had to meet a founder who was triple confident in something, I would hope it's actually the go to market. It's the customer acquisition. It's generating the value of people wanting to be there and seeing value. in modern day, most tech can exist, meaning if you tell me I'm building a marketplace, I don't doubt your ability to bring a marketplace to life. There's probably white label solutions you can borrow that are a copy of eBay and away you go, right? If you're on the bleeding edge of quantum and AI, you're Sam Altman, whatever, yes, that you're actually pushing the boundary, pushing tech in a new way, not just an application, but literally writing the code that is yet to be written. That is good because you can advance it. But if you're talking especially to an early first-time founder or, new founder in that way, they can sink infinite money into product. But all the money in the world into product doesn't mean you'll get a single customer. But if I know you can generate demand and you have a lot of belief and understanding and a strategic plan, again, no one can predict the future. If you could, you'd buy a lottery ticket, right? It's a lot easier than doing all this shit. So it's one of those, if you actually have confidence in your ability to get customers, well, now I'm curious because I'm working, mind you, this is years ago, so the confidence in what you could build wasn't there. But now we got to look at this with the modern lens. And of course, history moves forward. The ability for us to create things has never been easier with the advent of low code, no code. You can build a website talking to your phone. Between that and drag and drop, you're a UI UX person. Congratulations.
Terrible.
So what was your turning point to entrepreneurship then? Like, who was the most influential, most inspirational person on you that enabled you to build one of the most influential tech companies in the entire world?
So what I decided, I went to Stanford University, majored in AI, and what I decided was I wanted to create new products. And that led me into entrepreneurship. I initially went and worked at Apple Computer and Fujitsu and other things, and I was like, no, I want to create a new product. And that's the thing that led me on entrepreneur.
The want to build something, I think, is the want to build something or the wish to solve a problem. My favorite founders are expert founders with expert solutions, where it's like a healthcare person sees an issue and then wants to solve it, or someone has a passion for creating consumer products, comes up with 10 different ones, and because they're involved in this and they're in that and they see this. The builders, right, and the problem solvers make, from my experience, the best entrepreneurs, because on one side, they're people that are getting pulled, right, that know the expert piece. They have really strong confidence in the problem that they're solving, right? They recognize there's demand, right? There's this black hole that they can throw stuff at because people have issues and they'll get sucked right in. The people that are really passionate about building things, I like them as well because it's kind of the reverse. Instead of them being getting stuff pulled in by the customer, if I trust their ability to push out things, well, again, you can push out everything and get no sales. But if you push out enough things to the right customers and test for demand, and you see that, the push out hits that black hole and all of a sudden you're getting pulled in, now we've got some staying power. Now things are getting interesting.
Throughout your career, what was the most amount of money that you made in a single year?
One of the things that's amazing about having co-founded LinkedIn is last year it did $16 billion in revenue.
LinkedIn did $16 billion last year?
Yes.
How much did you sell LinkedIn for?
We sold LinkedIn for $26 billion.
To who?
To Microsoft.
What was that conversation like? How did you exit LinkedIn for over $20 billion to Microsoft? That's incredible.
Well, so what happened is Satya Nadella, Bill Gates, came down to the office and said, we're interested. I was like, well, okay, let's talk about it. They think it's one of the best acquisitions they've ever done.
Was it worth it for them?
I like that little, well, let's think about it. The more needy you look and the more needy you act, even if you are super needy in this scenario, the worse valuation you're going to get. Again, big business like this looks very big, but a lot of the core business fundamentals it's funny, I actually heard 50 Cent say this, gotta love 50, but it's like, look and act like you don't need anything. Because when you don't need something is when everybody wants to help and everybody wants to be at peace. But the second you reach your hand out and it's like, please help, like I need, that's when everybody's busy and turns their back and it's a big pain in the ass. And it's quite easy to see like when you are in a good space, who wants to be your hero and champion you. And then when you're in a bad space, who ignores you and, leaves you as the outcast. And I hate to tell you this, a lot of the people that you are thoroughly convinced would be by your side would not. They absolutely would not.
It was worth it for them and it was worth it for me.
What's your secret to networking with other billionaires like Bill Gates? Like, let's say somebody doesn't have a ton of credibility. Before you had all the credibility that you had, how did you build those relationships with those A players that were able to take you places that money can't take you?
Shout out to this presenter. I've seen some of his stuff on occasion, but he actually asked some pretty good questions, right? I think, again, he's doing a punchy interview, so I'm trying to add some context and some more practical education for founders that are watching stuff like this and wondering, what are my takeaways? Do I just go for the billion? It's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. But I think he's doing actually a really good job with these questions. I want to watch more of his stuff.
Guys, this interview with Reed has been amazing so far, and we're about to get right back to it, but I've got a very special announcement to make real quick. See, 99% of people will never get mentored from a multi-millionaire.
I'm not as excited as him. There's just no way. I don't have the energy. I need caffeine.
How I'm able to connect with and interview and
like
build relationships with
intravenously.
the most successful and the wealthiest people in the entire world. And see, every single month I give you guys direct access to 4 of the millionaires and billionaires that I interview inside of my private entrepreneur community. But here's the thing, I'm turning 23 years old this week on May 10th. And for that reason, I'm gonna give you guys direct access to not 4, but 7 of the multimillionaires and the billionaires that I interview on this channel, including the CEO of a publicly traded company that sold his first business to Oracle for over 9 figures. And I'm gonna give you all that direct access to 7 millionaires and billionaires on live calls for just $23. I've never done anything like this before, but since it's my birthday, I wanna give back to you all. This is your chance to speak directly
he's
to
using
the
School.
millionaires and
A good
billionaires that I
platform.
interview and get
Shout out Alex
personalized advice
Hormozy.
and one-on-one mentorship from them. Whether you're stuck in a 9-to-5 and you wanna learn the exact steps that it takes to leave that job and start building and creating the business of your dreams, or maybe you've already taken that leap, that risk, and started that business, but you wanna learn from the most successful business owners how to start scaling and making your first 6, 7, or even 8 figures at your business, then this is your opportunity to join and become a member of the #1 community for business
Jesus,
owners
I would be
in the entire
exhausted
world.
if I
But
was him
here's the thing,
after
you only
this
have
pitch.
from now,
And I work
you
on
watch
businesses
this
like
right
12
now
hours a
until the end
day.
of my birthday on
Do
May
what you know.
10th at
I'm
midnight to
sitting and
join and
reacting.
become a member
He could be
for
on the
just
streets.
$23. Because after that, at the end of my birthday, it goes back up to 50. So to join now, become a member of the School of Mentors, the #1 community for business owners in the entire world, go down to the link in the description of this video to join. I can't wait to see you on the inside. With that being said, let's get back to the interview. You created the biggest social networking platform in the world. What's your best networking advice for anybody in business?
The key thing is think what you can give someone. So what's some
Oh, I love that. Everybody, we call it the me monster. What can you do for me? And have you heard who I am? And you know all the great things that I've done. It's like, buddy, ain't nobody care about that. You care about that. We don't care about that. Everybody, what is it? Is listening to the radio station, like what, I forget what the acronym is, but it's like, what's in it for me, right? That's what people care about. Rich or poor, stranger or friend, they want to know what's in it for them, right? And if you think about what you can give, what value you can provide, how you can be additive, not just to the community, but to this individual relationship. Remember, there's no community. There's just a bunch of people in the community. And you build relationships and build connections and get support, get and give support one by one by one. And then in aggregate, you have this monster of a network behind you that can help push you forward and pull you forward and every other force along the way.
something that you could do that would help them? So for example, Satya Nadella started calling me because I'm like, oh, here's what you need to understand about Silicon Valley. And he's like, that's really helpful. That helps me as Microsoft engage with Silicon Valley. And similar, when talking to Bill, I don't say, hey, Bill, you're just so great. He is great. But it's like, oh, here's something that's going on in the modern world of tech. Like, here's something about AI that I see that you may not have seen yet.
So has Bill Gates become a friend of yours?
Yeah, Bill's great.
What do you notice about these people? Among the most successful people that you've gotten to know really well, what do they all have in common that's enabled them to be part of that 0.00001% of the top 1%?
Well, there's three different things I'm going to say. I'm going to give you three. So one is curiosity. So like intensely wanting to learn. That's like Satya, Bill. And
this is one of those things where when you hear these things, you don't realize, like, again, the master says something simple and to the beginner, it looks simple, but the master understands just the depth of what that word means. A lot of founders, I'll give you just an easy example. They are so convinced that they're right, whether it's their business model, their customer segment, their geography, how much money that they need, that they refuse to entertain the options out there, the things that could be or would be or arguably should be. And I think curiosity, not just about your product, but your customer. Where am I wrong? Where am I right? Where am I right, but I'm like the worst version of right? Like I'm 60% efficient and I should be going to 80. If you're thoroughly convinced your go-to go-to-market customer acquisition plan is just the best and never going to be better, and you're growing at 30% a month. It's like, cool. But what if you were growing at 300% a month if you ran 3 different tests? Be curious. What have other companies done that are similar to you, that are completely, different than you? One of my favorite things is because I've advised so many businesses across every industry and, again, all stages from idea to Series A. And then I was an investment banker, so I got to see, the billion-dollar things. Is I can pull nuggets from industries that look so disconnected, but their audiences actually think quite similarly. For example, the way that you network a lot in healthcare and the way that you network a lot in legal, very similar. And again, who's more different? Lawyers and doctors. But there's overlap there that absolutely is obvious to me, and we use it with our clients. It may not be obvious to anybody else, but if you were curious, if you were a curious cat and looking around and talking to ChatGPT and trying to understand everything you could, again, you can't tackle everything, but there's definitely some ideas you can run down the ways a bit. You never know what's at the end, but you have to be curious enough to be willing to try.
Another one is just raw grit. And
true, you have to have staying power. If when the going gets tough, you get going now, meaning just quit. It's one of those, one of the things I tell my founders as an example is we are absolutely going to have to fire somebody. It's just the truth. There's 0% chance you make 100% hiring mistakes that are great. What if you bring on someone important? What if it's your co-founder you have to fire? I know somebody that genuinely, and I won't go into detail, but he fired his own mother for good reason, because guess what? It wasn't going to work in the business. He couldn't get investment. Things weren't working exactly as they should. And if this guy is going to look at this and go, well, it's so hard and what am I going to do? If you're on his team, you can't have a weak leader. And it doesn't mean the leader can't have their little bits of weakness here and there, but underneath that weakness, underneath the pain, there has to be the grit, the resolve that, you know what? To hell if it hurts, I'm finishing this race because there's other wins to get. And you have to be okay getting bruised along the way, because there's approximately 0% chance you walk away with no bruises. But there's actually a very high chance, if you just refuse to die, that you actually finish the race.
Kind of like, I am going to make this work, right? This is a whole stack of different people, but for example.
Side note, one of the things that I hate when founders say the most, God, it just drives me up the walls when I talk to a founder. Oh, we're going to do this when this happens. It's like, okay, well, what if that doesn't happen? Oh, then we can't do it. Oh, so we're just done. We're just dependent on the universe, an indifferent, cold universe. Brilliant. We're screwed. My favorite are the founders that are like, we're going to do this regardless. However, we'll find a way. The earth could fall from away from my feet and we're still going to make it across this bridge. Like, there is a way through. Even if it takes 10 times as long and I have to be up at 2 a.m, it's going to happen. Now, does this mean that everything works out? By no means does it. But the energy that you bring to problems and the internal psychology often can change how you solve them. And sometimes just the right attitude can open new doors and build culture. It's one of those things that you want to be on a team where the leaders are like, no, we're surviving, we're growing no matter what happens. Because then when going gets rough, everybody goes, yeah, it was expected to get rough, but our leaders are going to see us through. They're the shield protecting us, and away we go.
Example, Patrick Collison or others. Then the last one is kind of understanding, what do I understand about the world that other people don't understand? And that's a little bit like, for example, frequently Peter Thiel is the contrarian hypothesis.
Yeah, knowing it's one of these little nuggets appear in other people in your brain that, are things that you notice that others don't. And there's some businesses that I'm working on right now. I'll definitely share about them at the appropriate time that to me seems so obvious. Like, I look at this industry or this problem and I go, shouldn't we have this? And then I go to my CTO and my head of product and different people and I go, hey, what do you guys think of this? They go, how does that not exist? That doesn't exist. And then I go, I couldn't find anything. You Google it, see if you can find something, because if it exists, I don't want to build it. I want to go do whatever. I have other things to build. But if it doesn't exist, is it because it shouldn't exist? Is it because I'm the first person to notice? Is it because I'm one of the many that noticed and maybe I'm in a race right now and I don't even know it? Or is it, I've noticed something and I just happen to be the first that's actually willing to see it through? There's the old thing of Harvard's acceptance rate is far lower than what they publicize because of the amount of people that self-select out. There are a great many people that thought of Uber and Airbnb and many other ventures that probably went, yeah, but nah, it's not, I couldn't do it, or I don't have the connects, or I don't have that. And then it just took one guy, right, in different teams and whatnot to go, yeah, but what if I just get started and I just refuse to stop and I just keep barreling through all the barricades? And then you're a billionaire. It's one of those, sometimes what seems obvious to you, you go like, oh, this is so clear. Then you go tell it to somebody and they go, that doesn't make any sense at all. And you're like, I get that's your feeling, but it still seems so clear to me, right? Like why does this sit well with me? Sometimes it's that little gut feeling. And then you go, not just rely on your gut. So for example, in the businesses I'm building, one of them, I was like, man, this should definitely exist. I'm taking something that happens in person and I'm putting it online. And so I went to a bunch of people that engage in this activity in person. And I went, hey, do you ever do any of this? And they're like, no, but I would love to. Do you have it? I'm like, interesting. I'm like, there's nothing you use. And these are people that are passionate in their space. They're like, not at all. I only can ever, do X, Y, and Z in person. I would love to do that online. And you're like, wow, even people that are really passionate in the space, some of them are naysayers, but in this business in particular, they were all positive. I'm like, wow. So people that are outside the industry say it's not going to work, but these people that are the actual players, the ones that I would sell to and partner with and do all this, the end user, they're gung-ho. I find that very interesting. And now we have an alpha that, I'm getting updates on literally as we speak on my Slack that I have to review stuff after this.
You think a lot of networking is bullshit?
The networking is bullshit.
True.
It's kind of like, hi, I'm Reed, here's my business card. The thing that's real is forming connections where actually
Bingo.
We are really helping each other.
What's the biggest mistake you see people make
helpful.
when they are trying to network with other successful people?
They ask for something versus offer something.
Amazing. I don't even have to add anything. Offer first, build
Like,
reciprocity.
hey, what can you do for me? That happens all the time for people. It's like, no, here's something that could be useful to you. And by the way, maybe you're wrong, maybe it's not useful, fine. But when it is, you get attention, you get the beginnings of a relationship.
You were talking about 2/3 of the people that have told you no in your network.
Yes.
You were part of the PayPal Mafia.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is to people that don't know?
I always say PayPal Network, but PayPal Mafia is sexier, so people really go with it. And it's basically the crew of people who turn PayPal from an encryption system.
I actually worked in an office literally in the same building as one of the PayPal Mafia guys, and they're an interesting bunch. You know what I mean? Eclectic, I think, is the word one might use. And I have a team member who had a very interesting experience with him. Let me put it like that.
System on mobile devices to a worldwide payments network.
When it comes to getting to market in a more quick manner, Popular Pays helps us move quickly and efficiently.
You were a huge role in PayPal getting acquired for $1.5 billion from eBay. What's your best negotiation advice for any entrepreneur in business right now? You've been at the table with some very heavy hitters. Give me your best negotiation advice for anybody in business.
So the right way to think about it is companies are bought, not sold. So if you're selling, you have a problem. You want them to
If you're selling, this is like, for example, in finance and M&A and investment banking, you run something called a sale process where you actually go out to private equity firms, you go out to strategics, you go out. Now, this is done so you can get a competitive offer, but I find it historically, and it just makes sense intuitively to me, that the experience is the valuation that you'll get if you have a genuinely like value add solid business from a process and trying to push a sale is far lower than if you have strategics, the Microsofts, the eBays, the whatever, who are like, hey, we want this thing and we want to buy it ASAP. So that way we don't have to bid anybody else out. Let's purchase. This is why it's so good to focus on just building something great. Because if you build something great and big enough, and again, depends on the business. These are very consumer facing businesses, so they're very broad spectrum known. If you're building something very niche, right, it can be a little harder, but even then you go to the right networking events, you tell people what you do, they start following up with you, they see that you're big in the space, they run this healthcare company, you run that, and they go, hey, we're going to integrate these two things, and away you go. There you go.
to come in and buy you. So the question is, how do you get that to be their idea that they are coming to buy you?
I hadn't heard that perspective before, that they're bought, not sold.
Yes.
How did you get in that mindset shift?
Well, it's because part of the thing is, it's like the dynamic. If you show up, just like you show up to a venture capitalist and you say, hey, I'm trying to sell you on this thing, then the person kind of rolls back and like,
Bingo.
okay, now this is me being powerful. You're
I'm
trying to
the
sell
big
your
dog.
company to me.
Brr,
Whereas
brr,
like,
brr, brr.
oh, well, I could be selling to somebody else and I've got this thing that I'm doing. And it's like, no, I want that. You have to think of the psychology of the person.
So I want you to think
Be
back to
in
you
demand.
throughout your career.
FOMO. I wish it wasn't true. And there's a difference between like fake FOMO, which is like Silicon Valley, where you're like talking to 6 different investors at a restaurant and trying to play it, and real FOMO, where you're like really building relationships and forming partnerships and doing things that enable like, oh my God, they're interested and they're going to do that. We better act quick. It's like, that is genuine FOMO, and it's very strategically, viable for sure.
Real quick, what is the best advice you ever got from a mentor?
So weirdly, it's from my dad, and it was when I was in high school.
Go
He said
Dad.
the difficult thing about making decisions is that you reduce opportunity in the short term, because when you make the decision, you've chosen door A and not door B, but it's the only way you get opportunity in the long term.
And what's the most difficult decision you made that paid off?
Oh, wow.
I actually think that's really, really good advice. You have to, as a founder, be willing to make decisions, both large and small, not necessarily at the drop of a hat always, but sometimes. Sometimes there's a fork in the road and it's like left or right, and you just got to pick. And if it's your first business, or you're not confident, or you haven't prepped, or just circumstances have ended up in a way where you have to make it and you just don't have the luxury of getting ready for that decision, sometimes you just have to, make the call and own the outcome. But the nice thing is you're playing a game where you're trying to get down the road. You're never going to get further down the road unless you pick some doors to go through. And sometimes you open a door and there's a cliff and you have to go, oh, can I, the Amazon, is it a two-way door? If we make this decision, is it incredibly hard to go back from? Like if you raise venture capital or something like that, or is it a decision that's very easy? Like, oh, we're going to form a 1-year partnership with someone and we can cancel at any time if they don't meet these quotas. And it's like, oh, they failed. Well, let's pull out and now we're on our way. It's very viable.
Probably starting my first company, SocialNet. And by the way, SocialNet didn't pay off, but it got me into the journey of doing it.
How did you deal with that adversity? Because
Most founders' first businesses don't work, or their first version of their business, meaning we think it's going to be this, and then it pivots 6 ways away from that. One of the businesses that I'm working with now, they came in very confident with a business model, and I asked like 6 questions and pushed some buttons on like, what if about this? And what about that? And what about this? And it's not that I'm right, but I'm just pressure testing it, because if you're convinced you're right and I'm not convinced you're right, and we both have ideas, you being more convinced doesn't actually make you more right. It just makes you more confident when holding the microphone. So why don't we go test our ideas in a viable way, collect some data, and let the market, let the customer, crazy idea, like let them tell us who's right.
A lot of people, they see social media nowadays that it's all glitz and glamours and entrepreneurship, but you had some adversity.
It is so non-glamorous.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that? How did you learn how to pivot?
Well, what you want to be doing is saying, I'm not just playing a one-time game, I'm playing a multi-time game. And I'm expecting that I'm going to fail along the way. Some, because it's not that you want to fail. It's not that you celebrate failing.
Here's a good example. How many times have you used a software where you didn't like V1, but you liked V3? It's like, were you wrong? Was the founder an idiot? Or was it just part of the journey that maybe they had an MVP, a minimum viable product, that was for the early adopters, the people that really needed like 2 of the 3 features, no matter how ugly it was. And you're actually more part of the mainstream. So you're starting to see the MVP, but it's not as good as it needs. But then 2 or 3 iterations later, you're like, oh, this really works for me. This is fantastic. It's like that founder had to experiment. They had to learn. They had to try stuff and get a lot of those early adopters with the highest demand and lowest, conversion threshold. And then they had the resources and the momentum, and they were able to progress to the V2 and V3 that inevitably got them much more of the user base.
You celebrate learning in order to win.
I'm going to have you dig deep on this one right here. I'm going to ask one more piece of advice that you got from a mentor. Give me one from the dad. Give me one from somebody in that network that you had that really changed your life from a business standpoint.
Well, when someone actually tells you something that you really need to hear that wasn't something you were originally planning. So I was networking my way to VCs early, and one of the lawyers that I actually talked to said, hey, look, you're a friend of Lori's. Let me just tell you, you're not going to be able to raise money right now. You need to go prove your credentials at launching products first. Go do
Just because you disagree with the advice, and especially if you disagree, you should kind of be willing to at least hear it, not necessarily follow it, but at least hear it out. But if it hurts to hear, and it's kind of that thing you suspect in the background, or if you're trying to pursue the easy route, like, oh, this would be so much easier with money. It's like, okay, but does that mean it's impossible without money? Could we walk 10 feet into hell together, get the progress we need, turn around, and then get the resources to get to heaven? Because maybe we have to suffer a bit to be able to get to the next piece. Like, I don't know, but I find that if I run away from the hard work, or I look for the easy road, or I look for this kind of this ideal scenario, like I've never had a startup, whether it's mine or somebody that I know, just ideally work out. There's always planned and unplanned and market moves and all this stuff. And you got to be willing to participate in that. It's a journey. It's in its own lame, I hate to even use like the hero's journey. Like, you're on a quest, like genuinely. And you're like, is it really? It's like, wait till you're 3 a.m. and you're stressed. And then you go from this hurdle, that hurdle, and this win to that win. And by the end, you're like pulling Excalibur from the stone. It's like, yeah, it really is a journey. It's not a little trip. It's not you going to the mall. It's a quest across America on foot through the Badlands.
Do that first, then go try to raise money. And that's what I went. I actually went and ended up working at Apple Computer World, and then built a network around me, and that helped me.
Did you take on a lot of capital to scale?
Well, in today's term, de minimis, but it was $5 million in the first round.
Nothing after that? Or?
Oh, no. Ultimately, we raised about $140 million.
What was your secret to raising capital? It's one of the hardest things for business owners to do, because investors, they invest in people and they invest in businesses, not ideas, right?
So the best thing
I feel like if he was interviewing me, I'd be just sweating. He's so intense.
Investors are looking for something that's going to be amazingly big, and they're looking for things that they think is the current trend for what's going. So like AI, things are good to pitch.
Investors go trendy, and they also know that most businesses fail, because even if you have like the perfect business setup, you know, you can have some random scenario, the founder dies, this happens, the founder steals money, and blah, 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 blah. You can have all the most important people in the world connected to the startup, and then all of a sudden it's fraudulent, right? How many front pages do you have to see with these startups to believe it, right?
Although if you say, hey, it's an AI milkshake, that won't work so well. So you're looking for that, and then you're looking for, why is it you're going to take a bet on me? So like a VC looks at 600 to 800 deals a year and says yes to 0 to 2 of them. So
I saw an interview, just side note, with Sam Altman, and he talked about when he was like CEO of Y Combinator. He talked about how they would make a decision very quickly, and their question they asked themselves was, could this person be the next Zuckerberg? And you have to remember, not every VC, more now than ever, are playing the billion-dollar game. Y Combinator's trying to be big, and they'd rather have most fail and a few win than have most of them do okay and call it a day. But remember, you can do okay and make 100 million, and if you own 100% of the business, you're doing pretty good, right? But to them, it would be a failure. So remember, that standard that the Y Combinator is setting, it'd be like Harvard at undergraduate saying, can this person get a PhD and teach at Harvard? It's like, I don't know, they're 18. What do they know about anything? They can't talk to women. Like, how would we possibly know if they can do all this stuff? Well, if you want to make a huge bet, and if there's $100 billion literally on the table, maybe you want to take that bet. But remember, there's a billion, there's 10 billion, and then a billion, and then 100 million, and then 50 million, and 10 million. And I ask you, if I put $10 million in your bank right now, would your life be different? It's like, okay, well, you can have 10 million much easier and by owning most of your business than owning $1 billion company. And remember, to you, it'd be a success. And to Sam Altman, in that scenario, it would have been a failure. This is perspective for you.
So why would they take a bet on you? And being edgy that way is really helpful.
So what's the number one thing that you look for in a business or a person when you're deciding to make an investment? As somebody who's been one of the most successful VCs in the game.
It's being surprised about something that could be amazing. So like, for example, when I met with the Airbnb co-founders, I told them in 2 minutes I was going to make them an offer to invest, because they had gone, we've seen something that no one else has seen, which is eBay, but for space, and here we go.
What's your most contrarian opinion about the future of industries that venture capital will be investing in that maybe a lot of people will disagree with you on?
Probably that the world of bits will be greatly accelerating the world of atoms. So part of the reason why I just co-founded a company curing cancer with AI is because
Love
AI
this.
will accelerate how we discover new drugs.
Love that.
Acceleration will also be like, for example, robots. That acceleration will be manufacturing. Like we will figure out how to build much better, cheaper, faster houses because of AI.
What's the most common mistake
I
you see
agree.
business owners make in today's world? You became one of the most successful VCs in modern time. You've been on the board of a lot of successful companies. What's a blind spot that a lot of maybe even successful founders have that you see across a lot of companies in today's world?
It depends a little bit on which game you're playing, but within the tech startups, it's not taking the bold enough risk. You're trying to make sure that you're successful versus, hey, I'm going to try this, and either it's going to be spectacular or I'm going to die.
This, I think, is more of a Reed opinion, just because it's like, I feel like I see founders take too many risks. Like they risk life and limb, and I'd rather them just like risk a few fingers. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to take all of your money and put it on a campaign. It's like, Jesus. It's another thing to go like, well, why don't we like divide this and test that and see about this and do this? And we have 50K left in the bank and 20K in credit card debt. We're going to pay this. It's like, there's a different kind of risk, right? One level of risk is it's all on black. The other is, hey, we're credit card, we're just going to keep paying the minimum for a few months and that interest is going to accrue, but we think it's going to work and we're just going to ride it out for a few more months and see what happens. It's like, okay, now that's a risk I personally am more comfortable with.
And that's okay or I'm going to die.
Now, you wrote a book called Blitzscaling. What is the most effective way to scale fast?
The important thing to do when you're scaling, blitz scaling, going really fast, getting your company large, attacking a market, is to say, how do I make decisions in a way that I do not take my foot off the accelerator? It's like when you're driving, you say,
Yeah, you don't
am I
want to
gonna
step
get off this thing or
backwards.
not? The time that I can make the decision is by going full speed ahead. So you say, hey, should I go into this market? Should I launch this product? Should I hire this person? Well, what's the way that I do that? Not ever slowing down.
Now, a lot of entrepreneurs, the reason why they struggle to scale is because they want to be that solopreneur.
Yeah.
They want to wear all the hats themselves. Who is the most important to hire in any business?
So one of the things that's most important to hire or partner with are the people who add their strengths against your weaknesses. So for example, I'm a creative problem solver.
It's a good thing. You don't need duplicates and with founders. I'll meet some founder teams that it's like 2 sales guys or it's like 2 devs. And it's like, great, but there's 2 of you and we can do double the work, I guess, for the devs, but we only really need one of your skill sets, like at a co-founder level, again, depending on the skill set. So greed, I feel like, makes more people poor than, I don't know, I hate to say like charity, but like more of a generous nature, because if you're so greedy that you want to hold 100% of the equity and you refuse to bring on people that are strong where you're weak and can support you and, you can be in 2 places at once or get double the work done or get all the work done that you have no idea how to do. Like, I'm not saying give that marketer half your company, but maybe a couple percent actually is worth 500%, is worth 50% in terms of ROI that they give you.
That's really good. I need people who run like all the trains on time, who are very operationally tight and buttoned down. And so you're looking for the person who is the right partner for you.
How important is vertical integration to whatever business somebody's involved in?
Well, it's important to know what game you're playing. And if the game is vertical integration, then to do it well. One of the things I got wrong is I thought we would have individual subscriptions as the primary business initially, and it was enterprise. And you pivoted. And the way we learned it is we said, look, when we launched individual subscriptions, we had companies coming to us saying, we'd like to buy. And we're like, the companies are coming to us. Customers are coming.
Responding to demand. Notice he tried something and he was wrong, but he listened. He was willing to listen to his audience. This is shocking, I know, but like the amount of founders that it's almost like they have earplugs on when their audience is talking. They're like, yeah, are you done talking yet? So I can tell you what you want. It's like, listen, Tom, what is it? Henry Ford. It's like, you're not him, right? You are not him. It's like, you got to get it together here.
Coming to us. All right, make a slide deck, complete image, and send it out saying, this is the product we're building. And the sales guy came back with purchase orders. And we're like, okay, we're building that product.
How old are you now?
I'm 57.
How old were you when you became a billionaire?
Probably 38, but I'd have to really go look at it.
So if you had to start from zero and you had 1 year to make $1 billion and your life depended on it, what would you do?
Be honest, I really don't like that question because it's like, what the fuck? I go to Vegas and just keep doubling down. You know what I mean? What is it? You're like 38 hands of blackjack or, of craps away from being Elon Musk. It's like, yeah, I mean, the mafia is going to kill you before you even get close, but whatever.
Do something that's very different than what other people would be doing. Now, there's a lot of AI stuff right now, but what would be something that would be, I mean, I started a cancer drug discovery company, but that's not a year. That's like 5-10 years.
So do you think in decades then?
Oh yeah,
long-term?
yes. I almost never play a 1-year game. I play a 10-year game.
Why is that?
Because part of, again, where it's contrarian is most other people don't.
It's also funny, yeah, that patience is a virtue, but patience also pays. If you take a long time horizon or even just longer than your competition, it means that if they're going to eat, they're not going to eat your lunch, right? The example I use is Lyft and Uber. They're both quite successful companies, right? They don't really care as far as, I'm sure the heads battle, but the people that own the equity, right? The people that you want to be or join that team, it's like, you're rich as hell. So it's like, who gives a shit? It's like, what's important is you actually get it right. And if it takes 6 months longer to get it right, it's one of the things I tell my teams. If something is due on a Wednesday or due on a Friday and you've got it halfway done on a Thursday, do not, unless it's like our taxes, which have to be paid or whatever, it's like, do not stay up all night on a Thursday and do a shit job and then hand me this on a Friday, because I don't need it done. I need it done well. Nothing can be done in startups and be good. It must be done well. Just do your legal, but don't read it and don't make it proper. Don't do all these things. Have it done okay, not well. And wait and watch how many problems you run into. Whereas if you actually sat down and spent a little time and read the clauses and talked with the lawyers, now you go, oh, we got to cut that. That clause doesn't make any sense. And that would really hurt us 6 years from now or 5 years from now. It's like, yeah, I know. Patience, reading the document, taking a second. It doesn't mean you take something that takes a week and turn it into a month. If something can be done in a day, I don't want it done in an hour. But I also don't want it done in a month. I want it to take the time that it takes, understand we're going to make some mistakes, understand we need to continue to iterate. Even when we're right, I want to go, yeah, but how can we be better than right? I'm happy with where we are right now. Let's go put out these other fires, and then let's try and make that right better. Or email open rates 2% or 50%, let's make it 60. Our click-through rates 3%, let's make it 5. It's like, great, I'm not here to settle on, rest on my laurels. But if my email click rate is doing well and my legals all fucked, it's like, go fix the legal. Fix that first, and then let's go back to make the monies.
I don't think about 10 years. I don't think about how you compound to 10 years. And compounding to 10 years is one of the things that gives a differential edge.
But even if you've already had an exit for over $20 billion, you still are thinking that long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one of my favorites. People go like, well, why don't the billionaires, you already have all the money. These people aren't going, and this is my raw assumption. I'm sure, I would suss it out with Mr. Reed here, but it's like the people that build these giant companies, it's almost like the money is incidental, especially after the first big wins. They must build. It's, again, to compare them to somebody else. You ever meet a painter that just must paint, or an artist? They could be painting in their room and they do it 10 hours a day, or they could be some big famous artist. At a certain point, yeah, the money's great, but that's not why they're doing it for, right? We talked about, Reed brought it up earlier. He wanted to build products. The nice thing about building products is if you actually protect your equity and do this and that, you just make money. But he still wants more products. He still wants to make things and create and build a better world, or build more things that help people, whatever his, personal motivations are.
Why is that? Just because?
Well, because that's actually how you create something that's epic, that changes industries.
And looking back to that exit, what was the number one thing that led to an exit over $20 billion?
It was a realization that building a network and getting growth in the network, and then monetization could come later. So frequently when people...
Quick note on that. I know I'm interrupting a bunch, but he's saying good stuff, and I want to give you specifics. Activity is more important than revenue. Activity is more important than revenue. It's one of the things I tell my founders. I don't care if we're operating at break even, as long as we are operating, meaning if customers are coming in the door and we're learning and we're getting them to use the product, I'm happy, because we can always charge $1 more, or we can always optimize away some expenses. We can turn that break even or even that little loss into a profit. But if people aren't using our solution, aren't engaging with our product, we don't know our primary features, our secondary features. We don't know where the place, for example, there's a lot of businesses that on the front end to, the customer, they look like one thing, but all their money is made over here on the back end. And I'm not saying selling your data, but as an example, you engage in a free platform that sells to one audience, and a subset of that is a conversion mechanism within it that makes some money. And like 90% of the revenue comes from that. Well, it's like, well, what are you? Are you the thing to this audience? Or are you the thing that makes money? Well, depends who I'm talking to. The CFO, you're this business. To the public, you're this business. And you know who cares? Nobody. We just care that the business is working, people are using it, people are engaging. And then we can translate that energy, that activity into an asset, into cash, into revenue.
People think of business, think, well, I got to have someone pay me right now. It's like, no. Actually, like, build the network, and then the business will be built on top of it.
So was the grind to become a billionaire worth it for you?
Yes, but also not just the money, it's the changing the world through the product.
There it
One more
is.
message for the younger generation aspiring to become successful and a self-made billionaire like you.
Life is a team sport, not an individual sport. Pick your team.
I love it. Reed, thank you so much, my friend.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate you. This was awesome.
Guys.
That was incredible. I actually really like Reed. I've seen him talk of like little bits and bobs, and everybody's seen, an entrepreneur on Instagram, but I love his answers. He's got great energy. He's a professional. Like he's the professional, right? I mean, he built professionals like us. But I think he gave a lot of really solid advice, and hopefully my little ad libs and education. Again, these big things, they look so big, and sometimes they can be so intimidating to kind of understand, well, like, how does that translate to me? And I'm little, or I have just this little idea, or my company makes 10K a month or 2K a month, or we have 500 users. It's like, I've worked with companies that they start with no users, no product, and no clue, but they work and they grind and they grind and they grind. And then years later, I get a call. Hey, Aaron, we're making 7 figures. I go, congratulations. It's amazing. And they go, we want to go to 8. How do we do it? And it's like, we're building in this process. You're earning your stripes and you're starting to set the targets above you. It's a beautiful thing. Hopefully this helps. Peace.